you brought this up the other day when you asked if I'd heard from my old friend Craig, and you
He's your old friend from when you were 5 years old.
Well,
no, 7 years old.
I was 13. I met him in 7th grade.
All right.
You remarked to me the other day about how surprised you are how many of my old friends from high school, junior high, even from grade school that I do keep in touch with. And you read a stat that only about 5% of all people keep in touch with friends after high school graduation, right?
That's
only
true.
5%.
That's what I read.
So I'm definitely in that 5%, but you don't really keep in touch with any of your old friends.
No.
So I ask you, why not?
Because for me, again, I can't speak for everybody else, but that is way in the past. And I have no connection to those people when I was 6 years old or when I was 10 years old because I would hang out with someone. At this point in my life, it's not as though I remained friends with them throughout the years. My life took many different turns. I did not stay where I lived. I always wanted to move to New York City. When I was 5 years old, I knew I wanted to go to New York City. I love New York City.
Yeah.
But most of my friends wanted to stay where I lived, which was a smaller town on Long Island. And they did stay. And so I had no connection once I started to get older and I moved to New York when I was 17, going on 18. There was no connection with them. You had a connection because you keep going back to your old town in Oklahoma City.
Well, it's my town. It's where I was born and raised. It's where my roots are.
Yeah. I didn't have strong connections to my roots.
Okay. Well,
you had a team. You had a different world. You had this. It's not a storybook Hallmark world, but we didn't have college. I mean, we had colleges on Long Island, but it wasn't like we had OU and you rooted for your college team. I didn't come from that world.
I thought you meant my grade school baseball team, the Mayfair Chipmunks. I keep in touch with several of the Chipmunks.
I have Chipmunks, no.
That's a great name, Chipmunks.
It is, but I like squirrels. Chipmunks. Squirrels are my favorite.
We weren't the Mayfair Squirrels, we're the Mayfair Chipmunks. I don't know what the difference is, but I still have a T-shirt, my game shirt with a chipmunk on it.
You do have a chipmunk. You have a chipmunk on your shoulder.
Okay, so here's my point.
But you have the connection with that. I moved away and moved into New York and had whole new life than what I had on Long Island. And those people that I knew on Long Island, the friends, they dwindled because I didn't have anything in common with them anymore.
Okay, so I'm friends with several people I did grow up with. I'm friends with Perry, who I knew, I think he moved to my grade school in 2nd grade. So I knew him in 2nd grade. I played Little League baseball with him all the way up.
7 years old or something.
7, yeah. I was probably 7, maybe 8. And then Craig I met 7th grade year, and he was the best man at my wedding and is my longtime closest friend. And then I keep in touch, as we talked about last week, with John and Susan, who are from my Mayfair grade school in Oklahoma City. And I see them once a year when I go back. And I knew them from kindergarten. Literally, both were in my Mrs. Estes kindergarten class. Okay. They mean something to me because they're real. And I knew them when. And I watched them evolve into adults. And so did I. And my connection is deep with all of them. And I trust the connection where they won't fail me. They're not newish friends, like nouveau friends who might not be there when you need them most. And because I did get into newspapers, radio, television to keep I've told you, I try to keep my feet on the ground. I try to stay as real as possible. What is she doing? She's waving?
She's panting. She's happy.
Oh, she's happy
panting?
She's happy. Oh, then she's really happy.
Okay.
Oh, she's liking what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I mesmerize her. You talk and she gets bored.
She goes to another planet.
So I want to keep my feet on the ground and stay real. Like I tell you, you can't let the vampire that is TV bite you in the neck and turn you into some creature who needs the mirror every day to look at. And you look in the mirror and you don't see yourself because vampires can't be seen in the mirror. So I try to keep in touch with them because they keep my feet on the ground, because now they're where I came from. They're who I really am was from those days.
Yeah.
And they're trustable in ways that new friends here in LA or friends that I've gained from television, I put quotes around gained from television, they're not. You can't trust. You can't know. You can't feel. I feel like Lil Wayne is like a true friend.
But that's a different
Yeah,
relationship.
Okay, and it's like a 15-year relationship.
Yeah.
But obviously he was in New Orleans, I was in Oklahoma City, so there's no way I have that deep a connection. But I do have a deep connection, and so do you
you have a
with him.
brother connection to him.
Yeah, and I don't have. This is another reason for me, and we're about to get to this. But I don't have a great connection with my brother, and didn't have with my late sister.
Right.
Okay, so these were my true brothers and sisters from childhood. So
you had a different connection
they matter
to
me.
You had a different connection to your town.
Okay,
I didn't have the greatest connection
I never
with my
thought
town.
I was too good for any of them. Like I've evolved away from them.
But mine
like
wasn't
I can't
about
have a conversation
being better
with
than
them
somebody.
anymore.
But I didn't have this. You had this love for your town.
Yeah,
I didn't have.
I didn't have a love
town.
for my childhood, but these people helped me survive my childhood from a broken home. Okay?
I didn't have that.
Okay.
I didn't have those
well,
connections.
you had a happy home. You had a mother that was the greatest mother in the world.
Yeah. I had a greatest mother in the world, and I had a really good father, but then they started having issues, so then I didn't have a great house once I turned 13.
But your relationship with your mother only got stronger and stronger.
Okay,
so you had a mother. I didn't have a mother relationship.
Right.
I didn't trust her. I definitely didn't trust my father. So I trusted my oldest friends, and I look back fondly on what they brought to my life because it mattered to me, and it's real and it lasts. So I like to go home and feel like once a year my feet are back on the earth upon which I grew, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you
think it's
have.
crazy.
No, I don't have that connection. For me, going back home is really going back to New York City, where I moved once I left my house.
Yeah, your
that's
friend
the connection
is the city.
Like
your life is the city.
All my fond memories, really. I mean, of course, they're with my
people,
mother,
but places.
It's with New York,
right?
That's to me means a whole lot.
Yeah,
to me.
But I get that when I go to Oklahoma City because I do love it there.
But I also have friends that I've known. My friend Richard, I've known since for almost 30 years. I've known Richard, and I'm still friends with Richard and my friend Tom and Francesca.
All right, you do. But
and Laura.
When I go home, as you know, I go play Lincoln Park public golf courses.
You like to go back because it brings you back to when you were little.
And it's when life was the purest, life was the happiest. When I was playing Lincoln Park, the West or the East course, it has 36 holes. It's rolling terrain. It's really it's a beautiful golf course in the middle of Oklahoma City. You think Oklahoma City's flat? Trust me, there are two golf courses across I-35 from each other. There's Lincoln Park and there's Twin Hills, which is private, and it is severe rolling hills through there. It was a beautiful plot of ground for a golf course.
No, it's beautiful.
And so when I'm there, I'm happy because I went back to where it was purest, where it mattered the most. Because it's where there was no stress.
I understand
except trying to play golf.
Yeah, but you see, to me, my connection to Long Island is my mother.
Yeah.
And of course my sister and my father and brother.
Yeah.
But my mother is no longer there. So to me, that connection, my sister will say to me, why don't we go back? It'd be fun to go back. And I say, why? Mommy is not there. So to go back and pass my mother's house,
it's weird to me, you still call her mommy, but that's okay.
Well, she's my mother, and I call her mommy.
Okay.
But if I pass my mother's house, to me that's totally depressing and upsetting.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that because I can't go in the house. My mother is not going to be there anymore. Yeah. So I would rather I block that out.
Okay. So I always go back to my birth house on 43rd Street. I even know the address, which I won't say publicly.
But you didn't even have a good relationship with your mother.
I didn't, but I look at it and we sit. You've done this with me.
I know, I've done this with you.
We just sit out on the curb.
Sit outside and look at the house.
And we look at the house. It's still there. It's gone through a lot of dilapidation and it's been sort of risen and fallen and fallen and risen and renovated. And it's just a little 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house.
Yeah.
Got a nice backyard.
It's cute.
Your house had a nice backyard.
Yeah, it's very nice.
But the point is that I go back there because I look at it and I say, how did I get out of there? That's what I think. How did me and my brother, because he went on to become a nationally known chef and restaurateur in Chicago, how did we get out of there? Because in that one bedroom, we shared a bunk bed.
Right.
I was 2 years older. And so this was up until I was 5. He was 3. We moved to this other house that was only slightly bigger, but still in the same grade school district. But the point was, I look at it, and there have probably been 100 tenants in there since we left.
Yeah.
And because we left a long time ago. God, I was 5 years old.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
But I look and I say, how did my brother and I get out of there and do this? I don't know. It's a 1,000,000,000 to 1 shot. Truly a 1,000,000,000 to 1.
Is.
With those two parents who didn't even graduate from high school and what we were going through at that point and what they were going through because they had big alcohol issues. How did we get out of there? And I just shake my head and it puts my feet back on the ground and I say, thank you, God. And I stay a little humble.
But you look at life differently than I do. Yeah. I go back and I get depressed saying, this could never be again. It's so sad seeing my mother's house. And so you look at things differently.
I don't want it back. I don't want it back.
No, but I would want it back, but I can't make my mother come back from another planet that she's on right now. So that's the difference.
She's in heaven, but you're not sure about that. But I am.
Well, I know that she's not here, unfortunately.
Okay. Speaking of friendships, you have a very close friend right here in our gated community that we live in. This friend of yours is 105 years of age.
Yeah.
Her name is Adele. We did run into Adele last Saturday afternoon outside as her caretaker was pushing her in a wheelchair out in the LA sunshine. It shook you up. You got really upset.
Yeah.
I think you were upset the rest of the day. And when we first walked up, she was asleep. And I think you feared for a second she wasn't going to come out of her sleep,
but
right?
Adele has been my friend for 8 years. And I met her when we lived in the other building, and she was 99.
We lived in another building in the same complex.
But she's the coolest woman that you'd ever want to meet. And she and I
is
struck
very
up a
cool.
friendship.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter how old she was, but she's the sweetest person. And we would just sit and talk, and she lived right next door, and she would come over and sit on our atrium, and Hazel would be really little, and she loved Hazel.
Yeah.
And throughout the years, we went to her 100th birthday party. But she and I have a very special relationship, and it's hard because she's older, and I don't know if she could last another 100 years, but I don't think she's going to.
No.
And it's too upsetting to me because I think of her in the sense of, she's not my mother, but she's older.
But I do think you identify her as part of your mother, like she's become a little bit of your mother.
Yeah, a little bit. But
Evelyn.
she's asked me about my mother, and she said, I would have liked to meet your mom. What was your mom like? And we talk. And she came from Chicago, and she in the 40s. She lived here I guess it was the 40s and the 50s. But she was friends with the coolest people. She would tell me stories about being friends with Groucho Marx and being friends with all these Hollywood stars back in the day. And she would take her kids trick-or-treating up in Bel Air with all these movie stars when they were real movie stars. And we just had a connection. And throughout the years, she knows everything going on in my life, what projects I'm working on. We always have a joke that I'm working on a TV project and one day I'm going to win an Emmy. And I tell her, Adele, keep the black dress out because you need the black dress. So even when I ran into her the other day, I said, Adele, do you have the black dress? And she smiled. And so it really hurt me to find out she wasn't doing that well. And her caretakers are friends of mine, and they said she's just not, she's not remembering, and she remembers everything. She will call me up. She calls me every couple of days to see how I'm doing. Yeah. And during COVID, she went and she got her COVID shot. She went to Rite Aid. They all applauded her at 104 years old or 103 years old getting her COVID shots. And it just really hurt me to know that, to me, Adele is always there. And to know that she's not doing well.
But what did her caretaker tell us as soon as we walked up? What's her name?
Shelley.
She immediately said, she's had a great life and she's still having a great life. And she wanted you to know that it's as good as it can be at this point.
Right. And that I made her happy.
Yeah.
And when she woke up and I said, Adele, it's me, Ernestine. And her smile was from ear to ear. And she just was so happy. And then Shelley told me that later in the day, she said she was so happy that made her whole day to see you. And she couldn't believe. And the first thing she said to me was, "I love you, Ernestine."
Okay.
And I said, "I love you, Adele."
You're playing a very crucial role in her life, and I can make a case you're keeping her alive.
Well, Shelley said that beyond her two sons that are alive, one son passed, that I'm the next person that she
Yeah.
really loves.
Yeah. So I've told you before, but I'm proud of you for what you do for her. And it's only getting harder for you because every time you subject yourself to being around her or talking to her, you get tears in your eyes. Because it's hard because you know at some point she's just going to expire because it's life. And she looks incredible. Her skin is
She
great.
does. I should post a picture of her.
She's
got the best skin.
and she's
I said
still
to her, I said, Adele, your skin is incredible.
105.
And so Shelley said, oh, I give her facials every other day. And her skin is like a baby.
And the other thing she still does, not as much as she
Yeah,
used to,
she
gets on her bike.
She gets on her stationary bike in her house.
Yeah.
And she rides it for 1/2 hour up until a month ago.
And it's why I think it's a crucial point as to how she lived 105 years is that she does a half hour of aerobic exercise almost every day.
She does.
And she's very
And she'd say, I
disciplined.
got on the bike today. I only did 20 minutes. And I would say, Adele, 20 minutes on a stationary bike? I can't, I can hardly do it. And so, anyway.
Okay. Thank you for what you talked about with her.
You're
and
welcome.
Thank you for what you do for
So
her.
anybody who has a 100-year-old grandmother, great-grandmother, whatever, think you should consider that they're smart and not that they're just old.
Yeah.
That's how people look at people.
Yeah.
That they dismiss them because
true.
they're older. But they're a wealth of information and life.
Okay.